Assalamu alaikum students. This is our lecture number 2, and we will study about vectors. First we will see what is the difference between vectors and scalar quantities, and then we will look at two different methods of vector addition, and then two different methods of vector multiplication. Let us start with scalar quantities first. So the scalar quantities are the quantities which require only magnitude and of course together with units to describe them completely. For example, temperature, area, mass, speed, energy, distance, power, all of these quantities are scalar quantities, and they do not require anything more than magnitude together with the units. While on the other hand, vector quantities are the type of quantities which require direction along with the magnitude and their units for complete description. For example, force is a vector quantity, velocity is a vector quantity, weight, torque, displacement, acceleration, momentum, all these are vector quantities. In this, for example, force, we can tell that how much or how many newtons of force is being exerted, but it is not the full description of it. We also need to tell in which direction force is applied on a certain object, and uh, acceleration, for example, acceleration, we need to tell that in which direction acceleration is being produced, and velocity, we need to tell that how many meters per second something is moving and in which direction that is moving. That is why it is a vector quantity. And weight, you must be wondering that what is the direction of weight. Weight is also a quantity that possess direction toward along with its magnitude, and the direction of weight is always towards the center of the earth. And how a vector is represented? It is represented graphically. It is represented through an arrow, and the length of this arrow is the magnitude, and the head of it represents its direction. Since vector has two things for its complete representation or explanation, that is a magnitude and direction. So the arrow, an arrow is how a vector is represented, and the length of that arrow gives us the magnitude, and the head of it mentions the direction towards which that quantity is pointing. Then in words, means in terms of symbols, how we represent a vector is there are two different ways. First is an alphabet that can be in capital letters or small letters together with an overhead arrow. So whatever we are mentioning in A, B, C, D, E, or whatever letter we are using in order to represent a vector through that symbol, we need to put an arrow over on the head of that letter, or it can be represented with bold letters. Okay, it can be capital or small, but it has to be bold. But with bold letters, we do not need to mention overhead arrow, means overhead arrow on the symbol of the vector. And the magnitude of these vectors is represented like this. If we are placing arrowheads, then we need to place bars on each side of the vector, and if we are not placing an overhead vector, then we do not need to mention anything. So only the letter will represent its magnitude, but it should not be bold. It is an unbold letter that represents magnitude of that vector.